What's up, everybody? So listen, welcome to Occupy the Yard episode 2. And I am your host, Pastor Darrell, aka DB, and I'm so glad that you're here. Now listen, before we get into this episode, I want you to do these things for me. One, make sure you subscribe. We want you to follow us, follow every drop, because I promise you there's going to be amazing content. But two, leave a comment. If you hear something that is so good, make sure you throw some claps in the chat, okay? But listen, the last thing is this: share. Make sure you share this with your students, with your orgs, with your campus, because ultimately the gospel is good enough to share. So listen, as I said, we are in episode 2, and this episode is Show Me How to Occupy Space. Show me. Listen, the guests that we have today not only work on campuses, but they lead these campuses. And if they're leading them, they're also leading students to be their best, to show up as their best, so they can be sent out as their best. So listen, I have my guests. I'm ready to introduce them, but I'm gonna allow them to introduce themselves. So.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Natara Garvin. I work at Fisk University as the Vice President of Student Affairs.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rashad Cockrell, and I work at Austin Peay State University as the Director for Community Belonging.
And hey, everyone, I'm Scott Sager. I'm the Vice President for Spiritual Development and Church Relations at Lipscomb University, and I also teach in the Bible department.
Awesome. So listen, I told you we got some heavy hitters today. So let's work the ice, all right? Here's the question. When you hear Occupy the Yard, what does the yard represent to each of you? In your own way, think about when you were students and think about what the yard means to your campuses today.
To our campus, the yard is community, it's family, it's relaxation. It's where our students can go to hang out, just be themselves, relax with their friends. And it's also where we host our community events. So where we can invite the outside in to fellowship with us at Fisk.
That's good.
Nice. For me, I think the yard it's a world inside of a big world. So you have the opportunity to come in and rediscover yourself, rebrand yourself, meet new people, try new things, grow, develop, and, just embark on a new journey in life.
For me, Occupy the Yard at Lipscomb would represent Bison Square, which is the center of our campus. And the idea that right at the center of our campus is a fountain, and right at the center of the fountain is a baptistry. And so it's kind of an announcement to everyone who comes onto campus that this is who we are. This is what makes us uniquely Lipscomb. And it's where all of our students pass through every day, multiple times a day. It's where we kind of announce all the community life that's part of the Lipscomb campus. So occupying the yard would be basically kind of like putting a stake down in that spot and declaring it's space for Christ. Yeah.
I love it. And I love all of you pretty much said the same thing. It's the center of the campus. It's where community's found. It's where you can relax, but ultimately it's the world inside of the world. Right? But inside of that world, here's my purpose. It's the community of Christ. And I love that because ultimately our students need to know that outside of my dorm, I have another place where I can belong. And oftentimes we see in students that they don't find a place where they belong. Campuses are so big. There's so much going on. There's so many ways to plug in. But ultimately it is about, hey, come here and you'll find your tribe, you'll find your people, you'll find your banner. I've been to all of your yards, and depends on if you're at Fisk, you may see something painted on the tree, right? I love the quad. The quad was not there or looked like that when I was at Austin Peay. But being at Bison Square, it symbolizes so much. And I think that is the easy sign for students to say, maybe I need to just hang around a little bit. So diving into that a little bit more, it's in your occupation and what you do. How do you help students find purpose? And then how do you empower them to occupy space on those campuses?
So with me in student affairs, the first thing we do when they come to campus is we take an assessment. And then after that assessment, we listen. We have listening sessions with students. We encourage them to be involved on campus. We have an organization fair where they can go out and see the different organizations and just see if it's something that they want to be a part of. They can try it out. If this doesn't work for you, then let me try something else. So that's just the first step of what we do to help students.
Nice. For me, so as serving as a director for community belonging, my work is directly tied to making sure students feel seen, heard, and valued at the institution. And so I help them feel comfortable in their identity coming to campus and educate the campus community to understand the different identities that we have on campus, the different cultures that we have on campus, and also how we can cultivate an environment to where if a student come here, they feel like they belong at Austin P. Research says like within the first 6 weeks, if a student doesn't feel like they belong, they will leave the institution.
Mm-hmm.
And so my job is directly like when a student arrives at Austin P, I want to make sure you feel like you belong.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure you have all the resources that you need to be successful here at the institution.
At Lipscomb, we'll really kind of work at this in two different ways. One of them is from student life, and I work with all the campus ministries, and that's why I'm tied to Mount Zion, and I love you guys so much. But,
Shameless plug.
We'll have 32 different campus ministries that have a presence on our campus this semester, and we'll have a church fair for them coming up this Saturday, and then another one coming up a few weeks after that. So we'll really try to say part of discovering where you belong and finding your purpose is to also find that faith community that's off campus so that everything that they get isn't they're having to get from us, because they need intergenerational, they need friendships, they need a place to worship, a place to serve. And so on that part, we talk about belonging and purpose as find your place in a church family, go to Mount Zion and be a part of it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The other one is I get to teach in the Bible department, and I can probably talk more about that later, but we really strive to think through how do we help students with identity, purpose, and belonging through those courses, and how they can find themselves in really the biblical story.
I love that. And you hit on something which kind of segues into the next question when we start talking about tapping into identity. Identity is huge for this generation. And where do most people find or really start do the deep soul searching? It's when you go off to college. You leave your parents' house. You were raised in a certain way, but now all the bumpers have been lowered. Like, all right, it's just me. How do you, in your institutions, keep students, when I say on the straight and narrow, right? How do you keep students, you're doing the assessments. Okay, you work with enough students now. You're like, okay, all right. I can feel you out. How do you keep them on the straight and narrow so that while they're discovering themselves, they don't lose themselves? Because there's a fine line with discovering and losing. And depending on the community you're in, the community and the crowds you're hanging out with, you will either sway either way. So how do you, in your positions specifically, help students navigate that identity, not crisis, but discovery?
I'll say for me, I have realistic conversations with students, and having those conversations help them to be honest with themselves and where they are at in life. And just talking to them about my experience in college and what I went through to get here where I'm at in life now. And being transparent and showing that vulnerability helps the student understand that, like, I'm not alone in this journey. Someone has been through this journey before me. They understand some of the things that I may be struggling with or may be dealing with in college. And so if I need advice or if I need a mentor or something like that, I have those people around me that can help lead and guide me to the right direction.
I love that. So many great buzzwords in that, right? Like vulnerability. A lot of our students just come in so guarded. So when you said that, I'm like, man, how do we, and with trauma and with hurt, family hurt, maybe they're coming in from different institutions with just bad experiences. So yeah, that was so good. That vulnerability piece. Anybody else?
I say coming in, that conversation starts with the parents and supporters. Having that conversation with the students in the room is that they're becoming young adults. You may want them to do a certain thing or be a certain way, but we're here as guides to help them find who they're going to be in this world, what their purpose is. So we start with that conversation. Don't be a snow clouder. Don't be a helicopter parent. Allow them that space and allow us that space to help guide them.
That's great. One of the things that all our freshmen will do this week is they'll go to a place called the Center for Vocational Discovery, where we begin to start asking these questions about who am I, why am I here, what is my purpose. And one of the things they'll get to do is they'll take something called the Strength Finders exam this week, and they'll find out what are their top 5 strengths, and they'll also find out what are their 5 weakest areas, and they'll begin to kind of process kind of what am I good at? What am I not good at? How do I see the world? How do I not see the world? And I think that's part of kind of introducing them to beginning to think about who am I? And then in their freshman experience class, they'll begin writing about who am I? And they'll start writing about who am I in this location at this point in my life kind of stuff. So
That's good. I love that because y'all have a designated space to help students discover that. Dr. Garvin, you said that it also starts in that community where, you know, with the parents like, hey, yes, they're your babies and yes, they're our students, but these are growing adults. So how do we build a community and a culture at your schools to say, we know you're figuring it out, okay? There's a level of accountability we're going to give you now. You are here to graduate, okay? Not just to have fun.
Right.
Graduation is the goal here, right? But where's the community and how do you build the culture that is so inviting for students to say, you know what, I can fail here and grow here? Because that's part of the process, right? Like, oh, I took this class, I didn't practice the best study habits, or I was hanging out way too long, right? And occupying space means I got to know me and I got to know who is in my corner and who's against me. So how do you guys at your schools build that culture of community to say, you know what, we are your biggest cheerleaders. We will do and shake any mountain that needs to be shaken so you can thrive and be successful. How do you do that?
Well, we have a place in the library that's called, and we encourage the students to actually find the library and attend. You know, go to the library. It'll help you. But inside the library, there's a place called the Academic Success Center, and it's where students can go if they're feeling any kind of pressures. If they've got learning challenges that they would like to express and be vulnerable about, then we can help them with that. But it just kind of allows them a pathway to a writing lab and to start realizing how they can get the skills that they need to, you know, better perform in the classroom. And so it's really helpful for them to know that they've got an advocate there. And then the faculty, we try to kind of play that good cop, bad cop to some degree. You know what I mean? Somebody has to say, you got to do the work. But we want to do that with love and come around side of people and meet them outside of class. I think what you were saying about being vulnerable and sharing your own experiences, you know, a cup of coffee or a sit down chat seems to go a long way with that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Tied back to just being transparent and talking about our experiences. And so for me, this week, we have early arrival students on campus. And I was talking to them yesterday about we can teach y'all study habits. We can show you how to incorporate study habits within your schedule. We can connect you with different resources. But I was like, a lot of times when students come to campus, the main thing, they don't believe that they can finish. And I was like, my job here is to tell you that if no one else tells you that they believe in you, I believe in you. I want to see you graduate. I want to see you go off and get the career that you want to have. I want to see later on in life you have a family or whatever the case may be. And so the old students then started being very vulnerable of like, hey, I came here, I didn't have my parents with me. I moved in by myself, or I'm the first person that's going to college in my family. I didn't have anybody to show me the ropes and different things like that. So being very transparent in our experiences, because they see me as like, oh, you're a doctoral student, you're a director. Yes, I had to go through this process. While I was in undergrad, I'm about to get kicked out of school. You know, just to be transparent, I'm finna get kicked out of school. Financial aid didn't hit. I don't have no money, so you know I'm about to go back home. And so being transparent in those experiences, one student was like, "Yeah, I need help with financial aid too." And so they helps them feel comfortable in knowing that they can come to us about anything or any issue, any problem that they may have on campus.
I love that, man. That's so good.
Yes, y'all are absolutely right, because we break our students up into groups when they come so that they can get to meet different people across campus. But as you know, Fisk is a small campus, so we bring in pretty much every office on campus to talk to those different groups of students so they can have that intimate conversation, that experience with them to know if you can't find somebody in Student Success Center, you can always go over to our Student Center for Mental Health and Wellness. Somebody on this campus is going to help you.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So with that, and man, you guys do the perfect segues, right? So with that, when it comes to their personal beliefs, right? How do you help them align their personal beliefs with their purposes, right? Like, oh, I believe this, but I really have this passion for this over here. And sometimes what you believe and where you're trying to work may, bump heads a little bit, right? Like, so how do you in your industries and at your campuses help them to align their faith to their purpose, right? Faith is huge. I mean, this is a Christian podcast,
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
right,
Like,
right.
but so with that, how at your schools do you help them align their faith beliefs to where they feel like I'm being led to get here because I feel like God is calling me here to take up space here, or I feel that I'm being called into a space where there is no women represented, no women of color represented, where there's no faith represented. This is a dark industry. How do I tap in? And I'm coming from Lipscomb. How, as a student from, like, bro, I barely made it. I'm just trying to graduate and I have no purpose. I'm not dreaming. I'm just trying to complete this. How do you help them align themselves to where God is calling them? And how do you give them the tools they need to get there?
So we talk about prayer. In those intimate conversations, we talk about, we have our chapel. So they may go with our dean of the chapel and have those types of conversation. Mentorship is also big, aligning them with someone on campus who has gone through that, or an upperclassman who has gone through that. And so also we encourage them to do volunteerism or either internships to see how that environment is. Do I fit into this environment? Is this really what God is calling me to do? Or am I really supposed to be going a different way?
Yeah. Yeah. And even before you guys respond, because how many students have y'all run across that I'm taking this pathway because my friend's taking it, not because I want to be there, but my homie is, so I'm there too.
Everybody thinks they're going into biology when they first come to school.
Right. I like it. So, gentlemen.
So for me, Austin Peay is a little different because it's not a religious institution. So I deal with students that have a ton of different beliefs, faith backgrounds and stuff like that. So my questions to them was, first, what are your beliefs? What are those core values that you're going to stand and hold true on? You need to identify those within your life. And then from that, if it's career, internship, or maybe join an organization, whatever the case may be, if that organization doesn't align with your core values, then you don't need to be in that organization.
That's right.
And so being able to really, in terms of like jobs and stuff, being able to really discern if that organization, company is the right fit for you, you're going to grow. But on my end, am a man of faith, and so there are things that we can see within people that they may not see within themselves. And so being able to put them in spaces and environment to help cultivate their gifts and stuff that they may not know that is within them. So I had one student this past spring. We was doing this event during Black History Month, and a student came to me, yes, I want to do this in the program, 2 weeks later, the student was like, no, I don't think I want to do it. Like, I'm scared. So I was asking questions like, why you don't want to do it? It's like, I'm just scared. I don't think. Okay, cool. So I went home, pondered on it a little bit, came back. I was like, I think I'd do you a disservice if I didn't challenge you to do it. Whether you get up there and just say a speech or whatever case may be, it doesn't have to be this elaborate thing. I think you should do it. And the student ended up doing it and came back later and was like, thank you for pushing me. So being in those spaces and being the leaders of those spaces, we see things within students that they may not see within themselves. So we have to be in position and in place, whether it's spiritual or career-wise, professionally, to make sure that we are cultivating the gifts that the students have.
Ooh, that is good, sir. All right, Scott, I don't know how you're going to follow that up. But
Okay, you want to just move on to the next? No. I think a little bit of, if I put on my VP for Spiritual Development hat, we do have Bibles that were given to all the incoming freshmen tonight. We've got a special ceremony with their parents. We're telling their parents, good to have you here. It's time to go home. But we're handing them a Bible and telling them that we hope that as they're meeting friends and they're making friends, that they'll make this one of their best friends.
Ooh, that's good.
Because this friend can help you find purpose in your life, can help you with anxiety, can help you with worry, all those things that we know this generation is just like overwhelmed, right? And so we'll give them that. Then we'll have chapel for them every Tuesday, a big chapel where they can worship and pray and be a part of a large gathering over 2,000. But then on Thursdays, we have breakout chapels. And these are hopefully 20 to 60 in number. And that's where they can really get to know and be mentored by professors and staff members and others at the school. We have service projects that are embedded into the coursework. But one of the things that really, I think, has helped students to think about their purpose has been the Lipscomb missions. And we really encourage every student while they're at Lipscomb to go on a mission trip. And we'll have about 800 students and faculty that will go on a mission trip every year. And so they're experiencing really kind of what life is like somewhere else, and you know how that changes you to kind of get out of your comfort zone. And then you also begin to realize how good you have it compared to everybody else. And the most amazing part of the mission stuff in my mind is we're a D1 school, so we play Division I athletics. And so we'll have about 320, 330 athletes on campus this semester. Most of them have thought that their purpose was chasing a scholarship and then chasing, accolades and then chasing the next big accomplishment. And they get to Lipscomb and we tell them, you got to have a purpose that's bigger than your sport. And what's been most amazing is every one of our athletes has to go on a mission trip during their 4 years. Every team goes on a mission trip. And it's just, it's like clockwork. Every year, students go on a mission trip and they surrender their life to Christ on the mission trip. They go to present the gospel to others and they realize that they've never been gospeled themselves. And so I can't tell you how many pictures we have of student athletes getting baptized at different places and really discovering that there's a purpose beyond what they thought. So
that's so good. Which kind of gets me to my last question of, in the time you have served, think of all the stories of the examples that people like, thank you for pushing me. It wasn't that I couldn't do it. I couldn't see myself doing it. And it takes somebody to give you that nudge to say, no, you got it. I will walk with you. Or, you know what? You think you know your purpose. Go on a mission trip, right? It's the stories that honestly wins the heart. And I'm always remember, like, Jesus meets this woman at the well and they had their whole discourse and she went off to tell and the whole town came back, right? To see who was this person. And then they got the revelation to say, we heard about him through your revelation, but now we know him for ourselves. How have you seen lives be changed and transformed just because you may have done things off the clock, off work hours, out of the office, those texts, those emails sent, oh dark 30, how have you seen those stories change and impact students that have gone on to change and impact the world?
So for me, I help all students, but I have a heart for students who come out of the foster care system. I was raised by my grandmother, but was in foster care for about 2 years. So they tug on my heart. And every year it never fails that I find that one student who needs help. But this one particular year, there was a student who she came in and she was just all over the place, getting in trouble every day, fighting, doing all kind of stuff. And I'm like, you're going to make it through school. I'm going to help you. We're going to meet every week and you're going to make it. So she has gone on. She's married now with a family. She's a lawyer. Life completely changed. So that's just one example of how I'm able to give back and pour into our students.
For me, I like people in general. And so I would go back into when I was a graduate assistant. So I was just entering higher ed and was leading this early arrival program for minority male students. And we was at the 4-H, and this one student, he wasn't interacting on the high rope score. So I was like, why you ain't going on the high rope scores? You scared? Like, what's going on? You scared of heights? He was like, no, I'm just sitting here in disbelief. I was like, what's going on? He was like, I never thought I would, like, make it in college. He was like, walking through the residence hall was like, I made it here. I was like, why you believe that or whatnot? And he was like, well, I have a background. I was in juvie and did all this and stuff. I was like, and that's okay. I was like, every day there will be a fight between who we used to be and who we trying to become.
Come on, sir.
But we have to make that conscious decision every day that I'm going to do this to better my life.
Yes.
And so that student went on, that was back in 2018. Student went on, graduate, going to get his master's and things like that. So that's just one example, but that's a lot of the stories of the students that I deal with. They like, I didn't believe I'd make it this far. And so I'm here now, what's next? And so we are there putting these positions to help push them to what is next for them.
Love it. I love it.
My wise sister from Fisk just mentioned to us how important prayer is to all of this. And it's been a real privilege for me to kind of think through how can you help students learn how to pray so that they have that, quiver, that arrow in their quiver, or that tool in their toolbox, because we're not going to always be present for them. So how do we equip them for that? And so I get to talk to about 30 students in one of those small groups about praying, and just for them to come back and tell me the stories of what prayer has begun to do in their life, or how they've been praying for somebody and they led them to the Lord. And there's one girl named Chelsea who came to Lipscomb, and I just try to talk about how important a relationship with Christ is, and she asked me to baptize her in the fountain when she was a freshman. And her parents came, and it was kind of a special moment for them, but then she began to start praying for her brother, and she led him to the Lord. And then she started volunteering with the high school soccer team. And she took them on a mission trip, and she baptized 5 of them in the ocean on this trip. And then she asked me to do her wedding this summer. And so it's just been fun to see, but it's all prayer, right?
Yes.
It's prayer and asking for the power of God to be unleashed in the lives of students. And then we sit back and, God is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all we ask or imagine. And so that's what probably excites all 3 of us, right? Is when God shows up and we just go, praise the Lord. God showed up.
Praise the Lord, man. And I think when we operate in our true selves, when I'm okay with my story and my journey, I can help people be okay with their story and their journey, but ultimately help them to transform into who God has seen them to be, right? Like God has already said, you know what? I got plans for you. And sometimes I am still amazed on how God is just transforming the little plan that I thought I had, and he turns it into something a whole lot bigger and better than I could ever think of. And I think ultimately that's what the yard is about, right? It's about the community that you find to say you came here just as a student, but you leave here as somebody better, and you leave finding a sense of belonging and purpose and destiny. So listen, as we close out this episode, all right, we're going to go around the horn. One last thing that you want to leave to a student who may be watching. Anything that's tugging on your heart right now, like, hey, this.
The last word that I'm going to leave is faith, prayer. Make sure that you do that deep soul searching in college. This is your time to figure out who you are. And that starts with soul searching and prayer.
I would leave with letting you all know that you can do it. College is hard. Life is hard. You're going to encounter different obstacles, crossroads, or anything like that. Take a break if you need to. Take a break, but do not quit. Keep going. You have people that is going to surround you and push you, whether it's just your friends, family, different university administrators, whatever the case may be. We're going to push you and make sure you achieve the goals that you want to achieve.
And I would say God's got a plan for you, whether you go to college or not. God's got a plan for you. He knows you right now. He loves you just as you are. He wants to see you become your fullest sense of yourself, which you'll only find in Jesus Christ. And he's got a purpose for you, plans to bless you and to give you a future. And you've got to walk with him into that future, and it will be a little bit scary, but it will be the grandest adventure that you've ever been a part of. And I just encourage you to step out in faith, step out in prayer, and just trust that God's got great things in store for you. It won't be easy, but it'll be great.
And nothing worth having isn't, you got to fight for it. You gotta fight for it, right? Hey, you got to put the work in. So listen, the yard was occupied by amazing people today. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I know all of your schedules are crazy right now, but you made time, which also says you know how to put a premium on what's important. So thank you so much. Again, share this, make sure you comment at the bottom. And we just thank you for tagging along with us, but always take up space and occupy your yard.